Hello and good morning to all of you. Welcome to the 51st Water Talk presented by National Water Mission and organized by APSC News Network. We welcome you all at this edition, and what better day than to celebrate the 51st Water Talk on World Water Day with the theme of Water for Peace. And for this special session, we are joined by none other than Archana Verma, IAS, Mission Director, National Water Mission, Minister of Jal Shakti, Government of India. We welcome you, ma'am. And we are also joined by the keynote speaker for this session, Mr. Arun Bhakta Sreshta, Strategic Group Lead, International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD. So, without taking much time, I request Archana Vermaji to kindly give an opening remark. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Savik. At the outset, let me wish our viewers greetings on the World Water Day with the very appropriate theme of leveraging water for peace. Because water, if it is unavailable and if it is a scarce commodity, it there is an apprehension that it would disrupt global peace and also peace within the country. Because water is the need it's a basic human need. It is not only essential in agriculture, industry, or drinking. Our body is made up of water. And so, clean water is an essential human need, and therefore, it is the pledge of the government to ensure that clean water, reaches everybody. And today, though, we have a different topic, which is on the Himalayas and the climate change and risk scenario in Himalayas. We must take some time to pause and reflect on how must we save water. As per data, in India by 2050, the demand for water would be around 250, uh, 1150 BCM, while the freshwater availability is only 1126 BCM. So, unless we address not only the supply side, but also the demand side management, which we always say that 5 hours for water are required: reduce, reuse, recharge, and respect water. So these 5 hours are very essential for saving, for conservation, for addressing the demand side management, because as you all know, water is not an infinite source. And that brings us to a region which is the topic of the day, which is a very ecologically fragile region, the Himalayas. And it is in this region that we are seeing the impact of climate change very much. And in terms of, the way global temperature rising by 1.8 degree centigrade from 1901 to 2020, sea level rise. We are seeing the glaciers shrinking in the Himalayas, and it is these extreme weather events we are seeing is causing a big impact on our lives. Flooding is an increasing issue as our climate is changing. Compared to the beginning of the 20th century, drought is also becoming more common. Rising temperatures are impacting the melting of glaciers. And as we all know that the Himalayan region's higher altitude ecosystem are amongst the most vulnerable regions to climate change in terms of abnormal floods, droughts, landslides, biodiversity loss, and food insecurity. And Himalayas are warming at a rate much higher than the global average, zero point 0.6 degrees Celsius per decade in Nepal, for instance, versus the global average of 0.74 degree Celsius over the last century. In view of this, the government of India stands committed and has always emphasized that climate change is a global collective action and requires international cooperation for its solution. We are a signatory to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and its Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement. And even though we are not one of the major contributors of climate change, we are part of the solution. India, through its various programs like the launching of the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which comprises various missions in specific areas of solar energy, energy efficiency, water sustainable agriculture, health, Himalayan ecosystem, sustainable habitat, green India, and strategic knowledge for climate change, um, has emphasized an overarching action for all climate actions. The NPCC provides, uh, under the NPCC, under the NWM, we have prepared State Action Plan on Climate Change in line with NPCC, taking into account the state specific issues relating to climate change. And as you all know, that the National Water Mission, goal 2 of the National Water Mission is assessment of the impact of climate change on water resources. And to take the agenda forward, we have also discussed this theme in our various forums, including our Water Vision 2047 and our All India Secretaries Conference at Bhopal and Mahabalipuram, how climate change is going to impact us and what is going to be our response to it. It is in this context that I now invite Dr. Arun Bhakta Shrestha, who has done some pioneering work in glacial lake outburst flood in Nepal. And before you start, I would also like to add that satellite based real time monitoring of Himalayan glacial catchments would improve understanding of flood risk and help inform an early flood warning system that could help curb disaster and save human lives. As per we also have this NDMA guidelines which has been proposed, under which MOJS is the nodal ministry. And presently, the Central Water Commission is monitoring 477 glacials and water bodies above 50 hectare size in Indian Himalayan region. And a Center for Cryosphere and Climate Change under uh, Climate Hydrology Division of NIH Roorkee has also been established. And apart from that, several research studies are being undertaken by the IITs of national repute or academic institutions of national repute on this. So, with that, over to you, Dr. Arun, so that we get your wisdom on what we can do to mitigate the impact of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Archana Verma. And it's a great privilege to be invited for this talk
Mute, Karan.
by National Water Mission. Um, Now, I will be talking only a fraction of what Madam Verma has talked. It was very comprehensive illustration of the challenges the mankind, the world, and our region is facing. But as Madam has already mentioned, I'll be talking about more challenges which are related to climate, cryosphere, and water, and that too of rapid onset nature, and less on the slow onset type of problems. So let me try to share my screen. And let me know if my screen is visible to you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So, as it is mentioned, I will be talking about climate change and risk scenarios in the Himalayas. And when I say Himalayas, it is the larger Himalaya expanding from the Hindu Kush in the west, and also including Karakoram. But before setting into the main topic, I just would like to introduce my organization, International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. We are an intergovernmental organization, and we are governed by 8 member countries. The member countries are shown in. Let me get my pointer. Yeah. So shown by the 8 flags here, and India is very much our member country, one of the 8 member countries, and these countries actually share this region in the map, the black line, which is the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. So all the countries sharing the Hindu Kush Himalaya are our member countries. As I said, we hold intergovernmental status, and the work area. Our work area includes knowledge, and we are a knowledge and learning center, and we work in science policy practice interface. So we do not exclusively work on science research, nor on policy or on practice, but trying to bring science for policy and practice and work in the interface between those two. So with that, very brief introduction of my organization, I would like to now set into the main topic. As has been very much, emphasized by Madam, that we are in a phase where climate change is rapidly progressing, and I'm going to present a few information from a report called HiWise, Hindu Kush Himalayan Water Ice Society and Ecosystem, which was published by ICIMOD last year with contributions from many international and regional scientists. And the report what has found that mean temperature in this region is increasing at a rate of 0.28 degree per decade. And that's definitely higher than the global average. But in terms of what it means for the cryosphere, significant in glacier mass loss is has been found around 65% more in the decade of 2010 compared to the previous decade. That is very strong change. And what it means in terms of water, because of rapid melting, we find that peak water will be achieved around 2050. So until then, there will be more water. But then after that, because the cryosphere masses actually significantly decreases, the water also starts to decline. The water from the melt water here. I need to emphasize on that. Now, what does it mean? Every increment of warming matters. So by 2100, if the warming is 2 degrees more, then we'll have only 50% of the glaciers remaining. And then that scenario changes as if it is 3 degree, it will be only 25 to 45%, and if it is 4 degree, 20 to 30%. So the glacier scenarios alone says that it is quite serious, it is quite alarming. Now, what does it mean? And one very important aspect of glacial recession shrinkage is formation of glacial lakes and possibility of glacial lake outburst flood, which we call in short GLOFs. And we have been working quite a lot on this area and trying to map out all the GLOF events in Hindu Kush Himalaya region. And what we have found is that as far as the record goes, which is quite long, there have been around 438 GLOF events in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, which has been marked in this slide. Not going into detail, there are various forms of various types of glacial lakes. And then this chart actually shows how different kinds of glacial lake has resulted in glacial lake outburst flood. Now, the trend, I would not like to emphasize too much on the trend because it all depends on how the records were, taken. But this definitely shows that the increase is happening, has happened, and this starts from around 1831 until very recent last year. And just wanted to share that Ishimod has been, working on what we call a cloth dashboard, which is for Hindu Kush Himalaya as well as Central Asia, the high mountain Asia, and you can find a lot of useful information about glacial lake outburst floods, their distribution, etc. in this dashboard. The link is given here, and if you are interested, please, you are invited to visit this site. Uh, Now, okay. So with that, I would like to share a few examples of glacial lake outburst flood in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And in this slide, I have presented two examples. One is a Votikoshi glacial lake outburst flood event of 2016, which was a transboundary, Gulf event between China, Tibet, and Nepal, and some of the impacts of those of this glove is shown in the chart. But I would like to here focus more on the Sikkim event, and I'll come back to the Vortekoshi slightly later on. And I think the audience here knows far more better than I do about what it was and what kind of impact it created. What is very significant is that it impacted infrastructure quite significantly, and most importantly, a big hydropower, a 1,200 megawatt hydropower dam was significantly damaged by this flood. Some animations are shown in this slide, right? So that shows, okay, the hazard is increasing, but since the exposure is increasing, right? Settlements, infrastructures like road, and hydropowers are increasing in headwater region, the risk scenario is actually quite significantly increasing in our region. Now, when we look into the future, again, this is coming from the HiWise report, is that the projection for dangerous glacial lake increase is quite significantly. A threefold increasing GLOF risk is projected by the end of 21st century. So the hazard is increasing, but then also exposure increasing. So in totality, the risk scenario is likely to very significantly increase in our region. Uh, Again, giving you some examples. Again, this is from Chamoli, Uttarakhand, February 2021. Again, I'm sure many of the audience are very well versed with this. Just wanted to highlight that it's quite interesting phenomena which happened, which was actually because of a large mass collapse in this area called Ronti Peak, which actually created that huge flood. And of course, the main driver, the main cause of this event is quite interesting, but also the impact in the downstream is also very, very significant from the perspective of infrastructure damage, and then several hydropower, some under construction and some completed, were severely damaged by this flood. I would like to draw an analogy to another event a few years ago, 2012, SETI in Pokhara area in Nepal, very similar to what had happened in Chamoli. And again, here, this mass around this peak here, a huge mass collapsed. And again, similar to Chamoli, there was a big flood created by this event, right? So what I think, and this is something which we need to investigate more, is that there are strange things happening at very high altitude, and Chamoli and SETI events indicate that high altitude slope instability is becoming a major cause for disaster, and maybe permafrost uh, degradation could probably be is the cause of those two disasters, and those could happen more in the future because we know permafrost, which is a very less known component of cryosphere, is degrading rapidly and could cause slope instability type of hazards in the future. But this is an area where we really need to put some effort. Apart from studying glaciers and snowfields, we also need to study permafrost. What we have also observed is that more and more the hazards are of cascading natures, which means there is one driver, there is one trigger, but then as the flood moves along the valley, there are cascading impacts. There are different kinds of hazards happening along the valley, and for that I'm just putting out this example of Melamchi in Nepal, which happened in 2021. And again, interestingly, it started from very high altitude, around 5,000 meter, where normally you do not have heavy rainfall. But our recent, events have shown that liquid rainfall is happening more at very high magnitude liquid rainfall. When I say high magnitude, it was around 100 millimeter in 24 hours, which is abnormal. There was a snowpack, precedent snowpack, which actually melted, and then added by the liquid rainfall, there was a significant runoff, which actually flushed out a very small, which was not a dangerous glacial lake here, flushed out that lake, and that eroded very fragile mountainous periglacier kind of landscape. So it was water and lot of sediment debris, and then it actually broke a very old landslide, and then that also added to the cascading impact. Later on, it triggered a two erosion and created a large landslide, blocked the river, and then eventually the water overtopped the landslide, and then another flood happened after that. So that was a cascading kind of event which added to the dynamic strength of that flood. And later on, as it reached the flat area, it deposited huge mass, actually deposited around 8 to 12 meter of sediment deposited, filling in a huge area of settlement and agricultural land. So this is the kind of example I think we will be seeing more and more in the future, unfortunately. So moving on, I would like to emphasize that some of those events can also be transboundary, meaning originating in one country but actually impacting another country. And this is one example again from Nepal, which I had mentioned earlier, the 2016 Votikoshi law, which originated from Tibet, from a very tiny lake called uh, Gongbat Son. So it's always hard for me to pronounce this name, excuse me. And what you see, this aquamarine lake is not the source of the flood. It actually, this lake has bursted out twice in past. But this time it was from this tiny, tiny spot, which you can actually see in this map, which bursted out and created that big flood, which just wanted to show. This is a hydropower, much, much, much smaller than the Sikkim hydropower, which was damaged last year. This is a scene of the small daily ponding intake site before the flood, and this is what it looked like after the flood, right? Just to give you an example. So this is in Nepal. The flood started in Tibet. So with those examples, I would just like to give a very high level, message about implications of climate change and cryosphere change, and which is huge. And it could be for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, the countries within the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, but could also be very well beyond this region. So first is energy security. Those events have potential to wipe out billions of dollars in hydropower investments, threatening our ambition to transition the energy into renewables, right? All of our countries have committed to that. So this could have a serious implication on this commitment. Food security. 129 million farmers in Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra basin depend on water from glacier and snowmelt, and this could be severely impacted. And in my presentation, I did not talk about water availability issue, and Madam Verma has indicated about that. That's a completely big thing, and we could dedicate a specific session on this discussion, but this is a big issue. And this means livelihood security, and one major event can set communities back to 20 years, back in 20 years in development. And then, of course, health security like waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases, moving to new and higher places, heat stress happening, and then malnutrition could be some of the high level implications of those changes happening. Okay, these are the challenges, but then what can we do or what should we do? And I have just put it in them as six urgent actions. First and foremost, we need to understand the risks. What are the risks? What is triggering those risks, and how they could progress as we move into the future? And I think that is very much important. Understanding the hazard, vulnerability, exposure, mapping them out, mapping the hotspot, which is very important for any sort of decision making. The second big area is flood risk management. I think that's very important. And when I say flood risk management, and we should think of a very holistic approach, of course, implementing early warning system is very important. But then there are many other options that can be implemented, floodplain zoning and nature-based solution. I think that was mentioned earlier also. There are many excellent, nature-based solutions that can help, but both in addressing too much water as well as too little water, and minimizing damage to communities and infrastructure. Just wanted to give you an example here. Okay, I don't know why it is not moving now. Okay, let me move forward. The other is enhancing water availability. I think that's another topic because of water scarcity. We need to think of a very holistic approach for increasing water availability. Sometimes we always go jump into large reservoirs, which is also one of the options. But there are many other different kinds of local scale intervention. I think that can be done. Then I think I have amply talked about the risk to infrastructure. So we need to really think about climate resilient infrastructure. And we have been working on this sustainability framework, which looks at four major pillars of sustainability of infrastructure like hydropower, of course, technical and financial and social, but very much environmental sustainability, which also include climate sustainability. I think these are very much important. And for your information, we are right now working on something called climate resilient hydropower guideline, which will actually talk quite a lot about what are the options for making hydropower more resilient. Trans-boundary cooperation is a very important, as I have shown, a lot of those challenges are of transboundary nature. We are living in shared river basins, so every step in this actually we can think from transboundary perspective. So transboundary early warning system, transboundary scientific collaboration, etc., and also in water management, integrated approach, integrated river basin management could be very important. And then that's my last part actually. Integrated approach to river basin management is very important. So just to illustrate, this is what we call a community-based flood early warning system. Very simple, local level intervention. But what the uniqueness of this is in the border area between Nepal and India, the Bihar part of India, and this actually extends in Nepal and India. So any flood warning system actually extends to India as well. And there have been several occasions where the communities have really benefited from this. So this is a very small scale, very simple, community-led kind of intervention where community from Nepal and India actually collaborate and share information which directly benefits the community. That is one. And this is the sustainability framework that I mentioned, which has these four pillars. Um, And on transboundary, I just wanted to give you an example from past. These are two events. One is from 2000, quite old. It's a landslide dam outburst from a tributary of Brahmaputra, which is known as Yarlon Zango, and this is called Yigong. A large lake was formed because of landslide, and it busted out and created a huge flood downstream. But then, it caused a lot of damage in India part of the river basin. But India, unfortunately, did not have any information, any early warning about what had happened. But then the second picture represents Parichu landslide dam outburst flood of 2004, 4 years later after the Yigong. Very similar. It is in the Sutlej, upstream part of Sutlej. And here, actually, the Chinese authorities gave information about what had happened, and India could actually act on it. At least people, life of people were not, loss of life did not happen. So even that simple sort of sharing information has a lot of, benefit. Now, of course, we talk about transboundary cooperation, but this is very challenging, area. And what we say, this is because of this vicious circle of mistrust. And geopolitical sensitivity actually is very strong in our region, which inhibits collaboration. Even scientific collaboration is not happening at that transboundary level. So that actually lack of collaboration result to incomplete understanding of critical processes in the basin, which actually promotes a lot of misconception, myths, which actually provide positive feedback to geopolitical sensitivity, which actually then I term as vicious circle of mistrust. So really, we need to break it somewhere, and we think the most important link here in this chain is knowledge. We have to start from knowledge, right? And for that, Ishimod has been promoting a few semi-formal platforms for cooperation. One is Indus Basin, Upper Indus Basin Network, where 4 riparian countries meet regularly and discuss and try to bring in scientific knowledge. And the second one is in Koshi, through this Koshi DRR Knowledge Hub. This is more from a DRR angle, but 3 countries, China, Nepal, and India, come to table regularly and again discuss on different topics related to disaster in this river basin, which in turn, and it is a very long-term process, but actually this we believe will at some point result in more formal cooperation in the river basins. So this is basically what I wanted to present here. And as an institution or as an individual, I would be very happy to, Madam, you talked about different initiatives from government of India in these endeavors, whether it is monitoring, space-based monitoring or any other. And we'd be very happy to cooperate with the institutions you mentioned in furthering our understanding about the challenges, but also working on the solutions, which is very important. So I would like to, end with this place, which we call Save Our Snow. And here is the link where you can actually sign up in our, commitment to, limit the climate change and save the cryosphere. Thank you very much again for the opportunity, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions, queries if they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arun Bhakta Shrestha. It was an eye opener. It was scary, I must say, the kind of picture being presented through the presentation. I'm sure Archana Verma ma'am will be commenting on this presentation, but as you have said, that actions which need to be taken to counter this kind of problems, I think the 6 points which you have raised very important. Understanding the risk, flood risk management, water availability, climate resilient infrastructure, global collaboration, and integrated river basin management. I'm sure Archana Verma ma'am will be in a better position. I think some of these 6 points are already part of Government of India's mission also when it comes to water management. And ma'am always talks about community participation. Mrs. Krishna has also given an example of how Nepal and India, two communities have collaborated together in a very small way in terms of early warning system. So without taking much time, over to you, Archana Vermaji, for your input on this presentation. And then I think we have some questions which can be posted to Mr. Shrestha as well. Over to you, ma'am.
Can we have the questions first and his replies, and then we end up with
Yes,
that is
ma'am.
how
We'll
we
have.
do slot in other sessions so that he gets the maximum time.
Okay, ma'am. So, like some of the questions which I have, what is the first is that how are the climate change effects like abnormal floods, droughts, landslides, biodiversity loss, food insecurity, increasing the vulnerability of the Himalayas? Maybe Mr. Arun can shed some light on this question.
Thank you. As I mentioned in the beginning, I touched on only a very small area of the big problem, right? And I think it would not do justice to the whole thing. But as the question indicates, the impact is quite broad. It's about what I would say. It's about extremes, right? So when we say extreme, it's about the dry extremes as well as wet extremes, and we talked about a little bit about wet extreme, the too much water phenomena. But then in climate change, we all know that it's not only too much water, there is also this too little water, which is happening more significantly, more intensively, and more regularly. So, when we are talking about addressing the issues, we have to look at both ends. And there are certain scientific bases that both those extremes are increasing. For example, our own analysis have shown that the extreme flow, because of precipitation regime change, let's say 50-year return period flow is likely to double by the end of century, right? That alone, that one piece of information can tell that there is going to be more floods in the region. So I think addressing those are very important. And as I said, now more and more cascading hazards, cascading risks are happening. So certain phenomena starts, triggers, but then it results in many different hazards and risks, right? So addressing those are more challenging. It needs multidisciplinary approach because there are multiple hazards involved. So multidisciplinary approach is needed, but also multi-stakeholder is needed. I think that is what I would like to see. And as the question poses, it is about floods, droughts, landslide, biodiversity loss, and as I said, also food security is a very important factor. And then, in those three river basin, a large number of people relying on the water for agriculture and having water stress would have a very critical impact on the society. Thank you. That's what I would like to limit to the first question.
There's another question. I think this question is also linked to the first question, but I'll still ask you. It's about climate resilient pathways. Is the question is that what are the climate resilient pathways and nature-based solutions that would you suggest which can reduce vulnerabilities in Himalaya region?
Well, I think I touched on a little bit on this. Uh, First and foremost, we have to hit the root cause. We have to hit the heart of the matter, right? What is causing all the problem? I think there is no escape from that. And about the climate change, drivers of climate change, reducing the emission, carbon neutrality, etc., is something which we cannot avoid. How we can do that? Um, you know, uh, there are there are different options. Decarbonizing our energy sector is very important. I think that's something. But then again, uh, we have also talked about what are the challenges. In one hand, we are moving into transitioning the energy sector into less carbon intensive or carbon neutral, but then we are facing challenges because of climate change, like I have shown, the impact on hydropower. So I think it is very important that we actually understand the risk and actually incorporate risk in our development effort. So that means climate resilient energy sector is very important. I think that is one big area that we need to work on. Now, those issues of too much and too little water is going to happen, right? And it is going to happen for several years to come, even with our action. Um, in that area. So, we really need to take action to reduce the impact. And there are many, many different options to do that. And here, the word nature-based solution, you have put yourself in the question, which is very, very promising in my understanding. And we really need to decipher this very simple word, nature-based solutions. And I think it actually can be very, very broad and very, very effective nature-based solution. For example, the community-based early warning system that I shared with you, I think it is a nature-based solution, and it is very, very effective nature-based solution. And we need to really come up with a compendium of nature-based solution that has been successfully implemented in our region. But then I would also like to add that not everything works everywhere, right? We really need to contextualize it, customize it for a local context. So I think that exercise needs to happen. But with all that, I think scaling is very important. Unless we scale, the effect will not be that significant. And when we talk about
इन
scaling,
लोगों को क्या बोलेंगे?
investment we cannot forget. So we need really significant investment and all those things. So attracting investment is very important. So yeah, decarbonizing, adaptation, emphasizing on nature-based solution for all that, investment. That's how I would like to summarize in response to this question.
Like, right. Maybe I see a lot of questions, but you've already answered most of them. There's this India specific question, sir, for you. It's like in India, the Himalaya extends over 10 states, covering various districts. Now, the diversity and heterogeneity of this vast area would also have an impact on climate. While devising initiatives against this climate changes, how do you take care of this heterogeneous nature? If you can kindly answer to the question.
Yes, thank you. Well, India is a huge country, and if we talk from west to east, it is completely different, right? From climatic angle, also significantly different. For example, in the east, it is impacted mostly in terms of moisture source by monsoon, summer monsoon, whereas the west is largely by western disturbances. So the climatic pattern is very different, and actually that shows in the cryosphere dynamics also. Um, and just sticking to water issue, for example, we talk quite a lot about glacier melting and its potential impact on water availability. But what is very important to understand is how much the meltwater is actually contributing to the river basins, right? And here there is very significant difference between Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra. What we understand, our state of knowledge shows that in Ganges and Brahmaputra, at the large river basin scale, and I'm not talking about the very headwaters. Of course, the headwater meltwater is most significant, but as we move further downstream, the role of meltwater is less significant, and role of rainfall runoff and groundwater is more significant. So even with very significant glacial mass loss, the total water availability might not change. And I think it will not change uh, in a large river basin context. Whereas in the Indus, it is predominantly meltwater regime, and the glacier mass loss will actually have a significant impact on basin water availability. So from that simple angle Also, one can see that any response to water management is not going to be same in those three river basins. Particularly, the western and eastern river basins have to be dealt very, very differently. Another example I would like to talk about is those Gulf events, right? Eastern Himalaya and Western Himalaya have completely different, glacial lake types. In Eastern Himalaya, it is largely pro-glacial lakes. They are much bigger, and outbursts from them are less frequent, but very high impact. Right? They create high impact. Whereas if we move to Western Himalaya and Hindu Kush and Karakoram, there are more frequent outburst events, but these are more smaller outburst events. And some of those events are actually not from open water bodies, but from in-glacial water bodies, which can even not be detected from the space. So these are more frequent but smaller impact. So again, if we are talking about addressing the glacial lake outburst flood issues, uh, we cannot do the same thing in the west versus east. So with those two examples, I just wanted to uh, again emphasize that we really need to understand what are the challenges. So the research is very important, and then with that, we really need to come up with solutions that actually work in the local context. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arun Bhakta Shrestha. With this, I think we had interesting questions and insightful answers by Mr. Shrestha as well. With this, I leave the session again to Archana Marmaji. Ma'am, your thoughts on the presentation and the Q&A session as well.
Thank you so much. As usual, like in COP28, your presentation has been very illuminating and insightful. But the major takeaways that I feel is that there can be no one size fit all solution for the management of the economic fragility of the Himalayas. You would be happy to know that, we have under the Jal Shakti Abhiyan, we are encouraging communities to go in for ice stupa management in Ladakh and Leh. And it is very essential that, there are certain things which are not in our hands, like, global warming, at least in the water sector, and greenhouse emissions and shrinking of glaciers. But at least what you emphasize, that, if a community manage it through diversified livelihood, through harvesting their traditional knowledge, and also uh, being in sync with the whole ecosystem, and ensuring that it is environmentally sustainable. So this that you have said is very important. And even technological sustainability of climate resilient infrastructure, which you've emphasized, is a takeaway which is very important. And nature based solution is something that uh, that we don't harm nature, and the solutions that we go for is the use of technology, or any technology which is leveraged is uh, is for the people and the environment, and not technology for technology's sake. So, really, it has been very insightful, and we really hope to, collaborate and work further on this issue. Of course, Government of India is already, CWC is already monitoring the glaciers, and we have a cryogenic center for excellence. But yes, we also have research studies, but we need to do more. So, but thank you. Your presentation has been very insightful, and it has, being a non-technical person, it has given me a lot of insights on how to handle on climate change and risk scenarios in Himalayas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arun Bhakta Shrestha and Archana Verma for joining us today on the 51st Water Talk. And again, what better day can happen than the World Water Day? We'll end this session, ma'am, with a small video by NWM, National Water Mission. But before we say bye to everyone, since the theme of this World Water Day has been water for peace, and in this presentation also, we talked about international cooperation. Archana Verma also spoke about international cooperation for climate action. India is a part of the solution, not part of the problem. We can also think of water as taking out risk out of everything and actually enhancing participation within communities and countries, which can help in future water management as well. It can bring communities together and it can create harmony within countries and communities as well. With this, we end this session with a short video by National Water Mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much, madam. Thank you.
गंगे च यमुने चैव गोदावरी सरस्वती कावेरी नर्मदे सिंधु जलस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु। प्रकृति का दिया ये जल रूपी वरदान पृथ्वीवासियों के लिए सिर्फ एक विरासत नहीं बल्कि एक जिम्मेदारी है, जिसे आने वाली पीढ़ी के लिए संभालना आवश्यक है। और इस उद्देश्य की ओर पूरी निष्ठा से कार्य कर रहा है राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन, जल शक्ति मंत्रालय, भारत सरकार।
आने वाले वर्षों में बढ़ती हुई जनसंख्या के स्वच्छ पेयजल उपलब्ध कराना बहुत बड़ी चुनौती है। पानी का मुद्दा बहुआयामी और जटिल है, जिसके समाधान के लिए सबके प्रयास की जरूरत है।
2019 में जल शक्ति अभियान की शुरुआत हुई और 2021 में जल शक्ति अभियान कैच द रेन नामक एक खास कैंपेन शुरू किया गया। जल शक्ति अभियान के अंतर्गत लाखों की तादाद में रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर्स बनाए गए, अनेक जल निकायों का पुनर्विकास किया गया, विभिन्न जिलों में जल शक्ति केंद्र स्थापित किए गए, वाटर बॉडीज की जियो टैगिंग और जीएस मैपिंग की गई और जिला स्तर पर साइंटिफिक डिस्ट्रिक्ट वाटर प्लान भी अपनाए गए।
जब किसी अभियान से जनता जुड़ी रहती है तो उसे कार्य की गंभीरता का पता चलता है, उसके सामर्थ्य का पता चलता है, उसके स्केल का पता चलता है, संसाधन कितने लगते हैं उसका पता चलता है। इससे जनता में एक सेंस ऑफ ओनरशिप आती है, और जो सेंस ऑफ ओनरशिप जो है ना, वो सफलता की सबसे बड़ी कुंजी होती है।
राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन का मोटो है रिस्पेक्ट वाटर फॉर लाइफ, जिसकी ओर बढ़ते हुए जल प्रयोग क्षमता बढ़ाने के लिए जल शक्ति मंत्रालय द्वारा पूर्णतः समर्पित प्रभाग भी शुरू किया गया है। ब्यूरो ऑफ वाटर यूज एफिशिएंसी जल इतिहास नामक पोर्टल पर ट्रेडिशनल वाटर हेरिटेज स्ट्रक्चर्स की जानकारी सार्वजनिक रूप से प्रस्तुत की गई एवं जन भागीदारी को भी अत्यधिक प्रोत्साहित किया गया है।
आने वाला भविष्य पानी को लेकर के सुरक्षित हो और सुरक्षित भविष्य के लिए पानी की उपलब्धता हो, इस विचार मंत्र को लेकर हम एक बार फिर जल शक्ति अभियान प्रारंभ कर रहे हैं। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अनेक बार इस विषय पर चर्चा की है। इस दृष्टिकोण से महिलाओं के सशक्तिकरण को भी हम विषय को भी हम इसके साथ जोड़कर काम कर रहे हैं।
मंत्रालय के इतिहास में पहली बार राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन द्वारा भोपाल में प्रथम अखिल भारतीय राज्य मंत्रियों का सम्मेलन आयोजित किया गया और स्वयं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री महोदय ने इस द्विदिवसीय सम्मेलन को संबोधित कर इसका उद्घाटन किया।
For a campaign to be really successful, it has to have the commitment of the top political leadership. And what better commitment can be there if the Prime Minister of the country gives this clarion call to the citizens to participate in this program.
जल उपलब्धता सुनिश्चित करने हेतु जल शक्ति अभियान कैच द रेन 2023 का मुख्य प्रसंग है पीने के पानी के सतत स्रोत, जिसमें जल शक्ति से नारी शक्ति को केंद्रित कर भारत की राष्ट्रपति महामहिम श्रीमती द्रौपदी मुर्मू की उपस्थिति में आरंभ किया जा रहा है।
लेंगे आप।
तो एग्जिट कर जाओ ना।
उन्होंने कर दिया एग्जिट। बोल दो ये श्रेष्ठा जी को बोल दीजिए, बस कर दो।
थैंक यू।